Welcome back, Trailblazers. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to talk about a tool that has completely transformed the way I plan and navigate my hikes, AllTrails Plus. As a Trailheads ambassador and the organizer of the Yakima Valley Trekkers, I'm out on the trails a lot. One of my favorite features of AllTrails Plus is the ability to edit and create my own maps. Conditions change, fallen trees, washed out sections, or even a last-minute reroute. And with AllTrails Plus, I can adjust my route on the fly and share it with others so everyone stays informed and safe. AllTrails Plus also gives you offline maps, wrong turn alerts, and 3D trail previews to help you stay on track and make the most of your adventure. And the best part, you can get 30% off an AllTrails Plus membership with my exclusive link in the episode show notes. So whether you're planning your next big trek or just looking for a new trail to explore, AllTrails Plus has you covered. Check it out and let's hit the trail. Welcome everyone to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey, connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the United States and beyond. Throughout these spring months, we've had the privilege of conversing with remarkable individuals. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. In this week's episode, we sit down with Diego, passionate hiker, traveler, and entrepreneur, whose journey from the countryside of Colombia to global trekking adventures will inspire your next step into the outdoors. Diego shares unforgettable stories from Patagonia's W Trek, Mount Kilimanjaro, and his epic rim-to-rim hike across the Grand Canyon, showing how hiking and travel have transformed his life. We dive into the importance of community, budget-friendly travel tips, and Diego's commitment to inspiring underrepresented youth to find the belonging and growth through nature. From solo treks to building outdoor connections, Diego's story is packed with insight, adventure, and heart. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Diego.
Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I have a really exciting guest with me here today. He's going to be sharing about not just his hiking adventures, but also the love of travel that he's been able to showcase on his Instagram. And Diego, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We always like to start off by having our guests share a little bit about themselves and how they got started hiking.
Ivan, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. First and foremost, full-time believer, part-time educator, part-time hiker, adventure, traveler, and I guess you could say investor and entrepreneur. I was Colombian born, and I remember my parents purchasing a little piece of land out in the country. And to get to that little piece of land, it was like on a mountain, so we had to hike up there. And I remember being very young, having to cross little streams, rivers, and whatnot, it raining and us going up there, celebrating long weekends. I think since then, I've always had that curiosity and that sense of adventure and sense of being outdoors. I feel like the outdoor enthusiast in me has been since I was very, very young.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the outdoor space has been a big part of your life. And I think maybe your hiking journey, your consistent hiking journey began in 2020. Can you kind of tell us what sparked that transition into hiking and how it shaped your connection with the outdoors now?
I feel I've always had that connection with outdoors, and I loved hiking, and I led, like I mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a hostel in the middle of the country in Colombia, which I led hikes many years while I lived in Colombia. But in 2020, after coming back and really having to kind of dig deep within myself during COVID times, we were locked in. We didn't have many options. I decided to purchase an America the Beautiful pass and went on a nice little adventure Midwest. I couldn't travel. I couldn't fly anywhere. And my girlfriend at the time and I decided to go visit Yellowstone. We decided to visit Bryce, Zion, Horseshoe Bend, so many places in the center of the country that we didn't even have planned out. And when I got back, I remember having that pass and thinking, I really want to put this pass to use. I just invested some money in it. And that's when I logged onto a hiking community on Facebook, I believe it was. And I came across my really good friend, brother of mine, Jonathan Flores from Outdoor Adventures.
And I think for a lot of us, especially those that start off hiking, an easy transition is to, start off hiking, but then also incorporate travel because you start seeing all these amazing places either in the nation or in the world that you want to go explore and hike. And I feel like the love of the outdoors also helped you fall in love with travel. And you've been able to visit over 40 countries now. How has traveling shaped your outdoor experiences? And how do you approach hiking differently in different parts of the world?
Well, that's a really good question. I think it happened organically during the 2020 period. I was going through some changes in my life where I quit drinking and I started taking some healthier approaches. And that's when I needed some replacement behaviors. And I found hiking to be a replacement behavior. Prior to that, my travels were inclined hitting up the bars, hitting up happy hour and things like that. But post 2020, then, like you just said, it was one of those where I'm now looking for these beautiful destinations all over the world that are inclined to have mountains and hikes and rivers and all that good stuff. And so I think it's been beautiful. The more I have been just doing it, the more I've found out there, where before I didn't look for these beautiful national parks or these national parks, like in Mexico City, for example, a national park hidden right in the middle of the city. And you do this little hike and you have this beautiful overview of the entire city of Mexico, 360 almost. And I wouldn't have found that otherwise if I wasn't looking for hikes throughout my travels.
I think a lot of us use Instagram to learn about these places. How do you research and discover some of these places like the National Park in Mexico City?
The internet's a beauty. And nowadays with ChatGPT, that helps out even more. But it all comes down to research. I think that's one of the main reasons why Americans don't travel as much as we should and as much as we don't prioritize it. And it's a bummer because there's so much out there. And there's this misconception of, oh, I have to have so much money to travel. That's one of the things that I think I've done such a good job with budget traveling and finding Airbnbs and hostels with private rooms that are very affordable, anywhere between, $25, sometimes even $6. You can find rooms like depending on the parts of the world and, $40, $60, which is still very affordable compared to what we have to pay for, let's say in LA or in any city here in California.
I like that you mentioned that sometimes here in the States, we don't travel as much. It still surprises me to encounter folks that haven't traveled outside of their state or their region or, just out of the country in general. And I think one of the easiest transitions I see in people is once they get comfortable with solo hiking, then that unlocks the ability to solo travel. And then from then on, there's no looking back.
I completely agree. I think it's just letting go of those little fears. And first it starts with, of course, hitting a hike or a peak near your community and feeling comfortable. Like you're safe, like you're not going to get lost, like you are comfortable reading a map and having, obviously your Garmin or whatever it is that you have, your phone, making sure you have signal in that area. And like I mentioned earlier, doing your research, that's a huge part of looking up the hike on All Trails, downloading the map. And then going back to the international travel, just utilizing the internet and sitting down with a little notebook, a piece of paper and writing down, this is what's around there. I think flexibility is a huge thing because you want to make sure that you write down some things that you want to accomplish within the region. But I think that's the beauty of going. And also that's why I really like hostels and places that have a community and common places because you can meet people or you can meet locals and also get some recommendations on different things that are available in the area. So being flexible to the point where you don't have to get everything on your list, but at the same time, you get some unexpected gems that you find along the way.
So true, Diego. And, speaking about community, like you mentioned, you're part of the Outdoors Adventures Plus community. We have nuestro hermano, Jonathan Flowers, aka Jonathan Flores. The Outdoors Adventure Plus community is really focusing on bringing BIPOC community members out to enjoy the outdoors and the outdoor spaces. Can you share how that organization has helped shape your outdoor journey? What does it mean to be part of that community?
It means a lot to me, especially like I told my boy Jonathan I told him I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now as far as hiking backpacking, trail running if it wasn't for Outdoor Adventures Plus. Because when I started hiking, I didn't have any kind of hiking background, like actual legit like hiking background. I like being outdoors, yes, but I didn't know what apps to use. I was comfortable enough to be on a trail with other people, but this has gotten me comfortable to, like you mentioned, to do it on my own and not feel any fear. And so, no, it's been great. I've been hiking with Jonathan, I think now 5 years. I took a chance on one of the second hikes he posted. We went up to Pinnacles National Park, and since then we've been really, really close friends. He's a brother. I love hanging out with him, and I wish we could have more hikes along the way. And now with the BIPOC community, it's a new thing that he's got going on. It's been great because we didn't realize how little us Hispanics hike. And, other like African Americans and the indigenous communities, they don't hike as much as, let's say Caucasian and European people, right? So it's sad, but at the same time, that's why we're here to kind of change those generation, I guess, I don't want to say curses, but just habits. Because, I grew up in a household and my weekend activity was to go grocery shopping and maybe go to a Dodger game, but that was pretty much it, a soccer game, and that was pretty much it. Or I had an actual baseball little league game that I played in. That's it. That was the highlight of the weekend. Go to church on Sundays, and that's that. But now having this opportunity, that's one of the things that I have that it's a little bit different for me within the leads at Outdoor Adventures. Plus, because I work at a high school, I currently stopped coaching a high school soccer team and I took over the Alpine Club. So having to take the Alpine Club now, and it's an I would say lower socioeconomic high school, mainly African American and Hispanic students. So it's a perfect opportunity to expose these kids. So I started taking them on hikes, and then Jonathan starts this urban nature youth project after he did his little training over at the coast, became a naturalist. So he was like, dude, why don't we kind of tag team this to the point where I can come along and kind of enlighten the kids on the different plants, on the different environments, the ecosystems. And I said, that'd be great. And so now we're trying to do that. And I know Jonathan and our group also works with Little Hikers of Bakersfield. And Greg does a great job with those kids and keeping them active and exposing them to hikes and taking them out. And so that's another great connection that Outdoor Adventures Plus has right now, where we're kind of collaborating with the Little Hikers of Bakersfield. And I'm getting to expose these kids that are in a high school setting that have never hiked before to the outdoors and hiking etiquette and things like that.
Yeah, I'm all about getting the next generation of hikers out there. Because like you said, with the Hispanic community, when I was a kid, I would go fishing with my dad, and that would be like the outdoor adventure. But we didn't really hike. It was a lot of places that had ponds that they stocked with trout, or sometimes we would go to the river. It wasn't until high school when I had a friend who was in the Forest Service that helped introduce me to hiking. And I would say like in the early 2010s, I was the only BIPOC hiker on many of the trails that I was hiking. But it's been a beautiful thing to see over the last decade that the trails have become way more diverse. And to see all women groups out there, or even solo female hikers, has been an amazing thing to see. And I'm all about getting the next generation comfortable with the outdoors and helping them become stewards of the land that we get to enjoy.
I completely agree, man. Well, it's funny you say that. I noticed that like heavily when I was hiking, when we did rim to rim over in the Grand Canyon. And I realized I went with two friends that are Caucasian. And then the two girls, they weren't on the bus with us. One of them was Cuban, but was born here. And the other one was Caucasian, and her brother, obviously everyone else was Caucasian. And I remember being on the bus and I looked at my friend Greg and Donnie and I said, I think I'm the only like Hispanic on the bus. And there was close to 80, 90 people. We're talking about a full-on bus, charter bus, and two shuttles. And I think there was one other Asian lady on one of the shuttles. So we would have been the minorities technically. And I'm thinking, man, that's something.
And I'm glad you mentioned rim to rim, because I think that's a hiking bucket list item to check off. And through your travels, you've been able to do some other bucket list hikes. The one that really caught my attention was the W Trek in Patagonia. I think that's on a lot of hikers and backpackers' bucket list. Can you share a couple standout moments from either Rim to Rim or the W Trek, some of the other treks that you've done across the globe?
One thing that I just remember vividly was the abuse on my legs while doing rim to rim. I thought going down was going to be easy, and I pretty much ran the entire 7 miles down to the Colorado River. And I remember the last stop, it's like a little bus station, it looks like. I remember sitting there and just massaging my legs and remembering how fatigued they were. And I'm thinking to myself, if this is the downhill, what is the uphill going to be like? And then once you get wrapped up by the beauty of the canyon down at the bottom, it was a beautiful sunny day. The water glistening on the river was clear. It was beautiful. You kind of forget about it because you're hiking along the canyon, like down at the bottom. But once you start looking at the time and you start realizing, like, wait a minute, like the elevation gain, and you're still like at 3,000 elevation gain, and you're like, wait, I need 4,000 elevation more, and there's only like an hour and a half left or this many miles left. And you're thinking like, oh no, that's all uphill coming up. And so then you start kind of, but it was good. I would not trade it for the world. And I'd like to go down and backpack and stay at the bottom and then hike out the next day. That would be another amazing experience. In regard to the Patagonia, the W trek, it was one of the most amazing, surreal experiences I've done. A lot of people complain that it is too expensive, but I would say it's not like Everest expensive, and it's a must do. Very clean, just an amazing, every camping spot, you have these backdrops. But I think the one that stood out the most to me was when you get to the middle. So you have like the W, when you get to the middle, it's not actually like a place where you camp there. You drop off your stuff here and you do like a day hike to what is called Mirador Británico, the British lookout. And so we're like hiking up there. My buddy and I forgot a jacket, like a layer. And my buddy's like, dude, you didn't bring a layer. It's really cold up there. There's snow up there and na. So I'm like, you're right. So I go back and get it. So I'm hiking by myself, and all of a sudden I feel like an earthquake type of like roar from across the way. And there was these hikers that were passing me, and we all just looked at each other, and I looked up, they turned around and looked, and we just got to witness an avalanche right in front of us. And so we were like, that's what it feels like, and that's what it sounds like, and that's what it looks like. And it was so far away, you could see it. And then in a couple of videos, you could zoom in and you could see so much ice and snow falling, but it's so big that you can barely tell. You have to pay really close attention. That's when you feel like a little mustard seed. That's when you feel like, man, I am nothing.
And, those were just two examples of amazing bucket list destinations that you've been able to cross off. The other one that caught my attention, because I think, high pointing has really started to take off within the hiking community. And you've been able to cross off one of the highest peaks in the world, and that's Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. What made Mount Kilimanjaro stand out? And how did that challenge you physically and mentally compared to like rim to rim or the W trek?
Oh, so Mount Kilimanjaro's, the last leg of Mount Kilimanjaro is by far the hardest thing I think I've done. And the reason why I say that is we took the Lemoshu route. The Lemoshu route, from the last base camp all the way to Stella Point, which is one of the, not the highest point because Uruhu's the highest, but you're talking about 18, almost 19,000 feet of elevation. And so it just to kind of paint the picture, it's 5K, a little bit under 5K, and it takes 6 hours to complete. And so when you wake up at like 11 or 12 at night, depending on the time your guide tells you, we woke up at 11. We started the hike at 12 because you have to get something light in your system. That's our breakfast. And you go with two guides and you start hiking, and it just starts getting colder. Your water, like your bladder freezes. So you don't even have access to water like on your, bladder. You have to have one of these upside down. So that way the frozen part is up here and you still have access to liquid. You are up there shivering, and so you have to stop to rest, but you can't stop for too long or else you get too cold. So you have to have that perfect balance. But the only thing that kept me going was like the Kili saying is pole pole, which is slow, like one step at a time type of thing. So I remember just zoning in on the person in front of me's boots, and every step they took, I took. And it was the hardest thing ever. We got to Stella Point. I remember my ex-girlfriend at the time had a cup and they poured her some hot water for you to drink. She was shaking so bad, she spilled it all over herself. And she didn't think she was going to be able to get past Stella Point. And through some, coaching and kind of encouraging her, she was able to do it. And we were able to do it from Stella Point on. It's like a little bit of a hike, just kind of through the ridge as the sun is coming up. So once you see that sun come up, because you're doing this all in the dark, it's just beautiful, beautiful.
I can't imagine being able to see the sun come across the valley down below. It must have been something else.
Yeah, no, it's like borderline like a glacier with like just a blanket of clouds just hovering over it, and the sun just little by little just kind of coming out. So it was just majestic.
You know, one thing I started noticing from your Instagram feed is you like to tackle these challenging backpacking or hikes. And the one that caught my attention was your backpacking trip at Kings Canyon National Park, because you were able to knock out a 54-mile trek with an impressive 11,500 feet of elevation gain, which is just incredible. What was your strategy for tackling such a long and tough backpacking trip?
All the kudos to that one goes to my buddy Donnie, and I've known Donnie for several years now, and Donnie's a beast at hiking, and he's a very reliable source. So he actually hit me up. I was actually in Africa doing some missionary work, and he's like, "Hey, when are you going to be in the States?" And I said, "Well, I might have a little gap between, travels in June or in July. I don't remember when it was." And he's like, "Cool, you down to do this hike, 4-day hike?" And I'm like, "Sure." I didn't know what I was getting into. And so I figured, I just did rim to rim. I'm pretty fit. I was able to do it. What I didn't take into consideration was the pack, that I did rim to rim with the running vest, not with the pack. So I just said yes. And so once we get there, we start off and everything is great. By day 2 or 3, I'm like in my head getting negative like the second day. But then that quickly faded. I've never gotten negative on any of the hikes, and like, why did I do this to myself? But that was one of the best experiences I've had in Kings Canyon, crossing Kearsarge Pass. And there was another pass that we did. I don't remember off the top of my head what it was. The Ray Lakes Loop. It was the most surreal lakes. I've seen some beautiful things, but I think that's when I started realizing, man, the harder you work to get to these places, the more beautiful things you get to see.
Yeah, I feel like the harder it is to reach a destination, not only is it worth it, but then you have those moments completely to yourselves that time. You might have your friends there with you, but you tend to have those areas all to yourself, which is special in national parks or in popular destinations.
Completely agree.
Diego, you mentioned your faith on the podcast, and I wanted to ask, how has your spiritual journey intertwined with your outdoors adventures, and has it enhanced your experience on the trails?
I believe so, 100%. I think it all started back in 2020 when I was kind of just going into the cycle and realized I needed to do something different. And so as I'm experimenting with some changes in my personal life, like quitting drinking and things like that, I also started getting closer to God, I feel. And so the more and more I guess the closer I got to God, the more I learned about what Jesus did when he was on this earth. And I noticed that Jesus did nothing but serve and help people. And then he would escape to go be with God out in the mountain and pray and have some alone time. And so I kind of look at my hiking when I go by myself and even with a community as that. It's my, first of all, opportunity to be alone or connected with God, and also my opportunity to just be grateful for the little things like nature, like all his creation, basically. So it has been great. And through some of these hard hikes, it's great because I get to connect and really pray about it, especially when you're with one other person. You hike together at some point, but a lot of it, he's behind, I'm in front, or even with groups, you get those alone times. And that's when you really, really get to connect. And I like to talk to God and just be grateful and tell him what I'm thinking and what I'm struggling with, and just mainly just show all the appreciation for what he allows me to do, because he allows me to do so much. I couldn't do anything without God. So
And you've been able to showcase what you've been able to experience, not just in California, but all over the world. And it's a really special to share with the community, not just on your hikes, but also on social media. One thing that we like to do here on the podcast is a regular segment that we do a deep dive into our guest's Instagram feed and ask them about a particular post or reel. The one that caught my attention was the stunning photos from, I think it's called Thousand Island Lake, where it's these mountains in the background and these incredible starry skies, and the lighting in those shots is just breathtaking. It's incredible. Can you walk us through that experience and taking those shots?
yeah, that was another one of the practice hikes that we were doing to train for the rim to rim. And so the same group that went there, including my friend Donnie, we went out there and I didn't really know what I was getting into. And it was one of the earlier backpacking hikes that I'd done. So I prepared and I was good to go. But once we got to our actual site and we saw those lakes and the sun starts going down, we enjoy the sunset, we're having dinner. And I remember thinking to myself, it can't get more beautiful than this. And then all of a sudden the sun sun fully goes down and we start getting that like purple, orangey, and the clouds are kind of still out here and there. And all of a sudden you look up and you're like, wait a minute. This is even better than the sunset. And that will be engraved in my, like, forever. I can't wait to go back. And that is what kind of developed that interest to keep going back to the Eastern Sierras, because we're not that far away. We're like 3, maybe 4 hours away, and it's very doable and it's relatively cheap. I mean, what do you have to pay like when you go out there? Gas, your food that you're going to eat out there, and maybe some food after the hike to celebrate the hike. But in reality, and the passes, obviously, but the passes are fairly inexpensive. So it's a great way to connect, get away, and enjoy, like you mentioned, those skies that I'm never gonna see again.
Absolutely beautiful shots. And, I recommend listeners, if they get a chance, to check out those shots because they are truly remarkable. Diego, these last set of questions are questions we like to ask all our guests that come on the podcast. And the first one is, I feel like a lot of hikers and even backpackers have a regular summit routine or end of the hike routine. For many, it's packing a favorite snack or drink. For others, it's enjoying a moment of zen. And then for a lot of us, it's enjoying that favorite meal afterwards. Do you have a regular custom or routine that you like to do when you reach your destination or when you make it back out?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, always like a banana or an apple to kind of get going. As I get to the top, Jonathan will tell you, my go-tos are either like a PB&J on sourdough or like a wrap, like a chicken spinach, whether I have like some pesto or some kind of hummus wrap that is just so delicious when you reach a peak or when you get to the midway point. And then we used to do a lot of tacos, like taco stop every time. But now we've been mixing it up. It's more about, Jonathan's a foodie and he loves his food. So he does really good at researching the restaurants, good restaurants and in the area. One of like the last ones that we did was like this Peruvian spot and we had some delicious food. So no, like it just depends on as long as we get together with several of the people that we hike with within our community, that's it. But as far as snacks and midway point, I think that would be it.
And this next one is about your pack list. Do you have a luxury item that you tend to pack frequently that maybe falls outside of the essentials list?
Oh, I would say no. I'm not the type of person that takes like a chair or anything like that. I would say the only thing that I just recently found out about and purchased through a guy I met on the W Trek, super good dude, but it was a little tripod, a little like magnetic tripod, and you don't have to screw anything in. It just kind of boom, and it's very light. So I like it. It's very small. So it just kind of unfolds, and that's the only thing I've been adding. And well, one other thing, my drone. I do like taking my drone. As long as it's not a national park, I don't like to violate any, obviously, rules. But if it's a spot that allows drones, I mean, just play with it a little bit. And that would be a luxury item I consider.
And now we're recording this at the beginning of spring. There's still plenty of months left here in 2025 to enjoy the trails and to travel. Is there anything exciting on the horizon for the rest of the year?
Yes, I can't wait for summer, although I'm a little backed up on planning my summer trip. I do have a Banff National Park trip coming up during spring break, April 11th, I think I'm taking off. That'll be fun. I'm excited for that. I've had Banff National Park on my hikes and national parks goals for some years now. As far as summer, I've touched bases with my buddy Donnie about doing the John Muir Trail. So that's up in talks. We're looking for permits for that. But I've also considered maybe sneaking off to like Spain and France and doing the Camino de Santiago de Compostela, but that would take my entire summer. And the last thing that I'm kind of wrestling with is maybe going to Slovenia and checking out Julian Alps. So that's more of like a 10 to 12 dayer. I think that one would be a little bit more feasible if I plan on doing the John Muir. So that way I don't have to take up my entire summer and I could go visit my parents in Colombia too. So,
oh man, I'm looking forward to it because I think the only place that's going to have the potential to knock Banff off the top of the list is going to be Patagonia. To this day, I think Banff is the most beautiful park I've been to. So many incredible views in such a short and compact section, and then the neighboring national parks are just as gorgeous. So I'm really excited to see what you're able to share with us on Instagram, and looking forward to what else brings in 2025, whether it's hiking, backpacking, and traveling. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the year brings to you.
I'm excited, man.
Now, Diego, this last section of the podcast is the this or that questions. I'm going to give you 10 hiking related topics, and you just choose which ones you prefer out of the two. You're more than welcome to say both or neither. But the first one is, do you prefer to pack a trail lunch or trail snacks?
Oh, I'm going to go with a trail lunch.
This next one can be tough, but waterfalls or summits?
I'm going to go with summits.
And then this next one is a trail system question. Switchbacks or straight up?
I'm going to go with switchbacks. I think it's not as hard. I think it's easier on the mind to kind of prepare and actually do.
I feel like it could either backfire on me or it can help me, but sometimes if I know how many switchbacks there is on a trail, I'll be counting them, which tends to help me out. But then when you get to 12 and there's another 20 to go, it's like, oh man.
Yeah.
I'd rather not know how many are left.
The number.
Yeah. Now, this next one's our most controversial one, Diego, but trek poles or freehand?
Oh, I just got done talking to my buddy in Texas about poles, and he was looking to buy some. I'm going to go with freehand. I do have some poles, but I hardly ever use them. I do appreciate them when you have really unstable ground or scree and that kind of stuff. They help out a lot, but I would go with freehand.
This next one's about your footwear. Do you rock trail runners or do you still use traditional hiking boots?
No, I have used trail runners for a good portion of my hiking time. I just stick to the ultras, usually Lone Peaks. I love my Lone Peaks, and I even have some Lone Peaks that are like the boots, and I use those for like the more difficult hikes.
This is another trail system question, but do you prefer loop trails or out and back trails?
Oh, I would say loop trails. I would prefer over the out and back just to get a different view of the entire area instead of seeing the same thing again.
And then this next one, it could be tough for you because you experience both of these, but group hikes or solo adventures?
I've had to do a lot of solo lately, preparing for a 50K I just recently did in Nicaragua. Or not a 50K, ended up doing the 28K. But I'm going to go with the group hikes. Just because the community, you get to meet new people all the time. You get to hear other hikes that they've done that now you just added to your bucket list. And lastly, you also have the opportunity to travel or be alone within that group hike. So I think group hikes.
And then these next two are our toughest ones. But this one is sunset hikes or sunrise hikes?
Oh, yeah, that one's a tough one, but I think I'm going to go with sunrise hikes just because I'd like to get the dark part done, like get it out of the way instead of doing it at the end of the hike.
Just in time as we're recording this, but spring wildflowers or fall colors?
Oh, that's another toughie. I'm going to say with fall colors. After doing that hike, the Thousand Island Lakes, and seeing that contrast with the browns and a little bit of greens and the oranges, that right there, yeah, I'm going to go with fall colors.
And then the last one is, do you prefer slow and scenic hikes or fast and challenging?
Slow and scenic hikes. Slow and scenic hikes, enjoy it. That's one of the things, I really liked about backpacking is just getting to stop, connect, take off your shoes on a rock, things like that. Take a dip in a lake or a stream. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was it for the this or that questions, Diego. If folks want to follow your journey online, whether it's on social media or other avenues, where are some of the places they can find you at?
I would say Instagram is probably the best one. I don't have like a link tree or anything like that. My Instagram handle is at Diego_Ventures, and that's pretty much it. They can find me there. And
awesome. And we'll be sure to put that in the episode show notes so people can follow your adventures along. Diego, it has been awesome speaking with you about your journey with the outdoors and traveling. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to speak with us.
Ivan, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to see it and hear it. I look forward to other of your future guests on there because they've been great, man. So I really appreciate what you're doing along with your little hiking group. That is now a 1-year celebration. So congrats.
Appreciate that, Diego. Gracias.
Con mucho gusto.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Diego. We extend a heartfelt thanks to him for coming on the podcast. Be sure to follow him on Instagram at Diego_Ventures and check out the episode show notes to learn more. New episodes will be dropping every Monday this spring, with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure you never miss out on these thrilling tales, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to check out our vibrant community on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, ursaminorouttfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, ursaminorouttfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order.